Hey guys, it's me Dory. Today I want to go over my Puella Magi Madoka Magica manga collection, which is currently up to date on all English releases. I also have a few art books that I want to peruse through as well. I'll be giving minor thoughts on some of these series. Some of them I actually have not read in a while. I will probably save my more thorough opinions of those in a later video. And so today I will just be going specifically through my collection and just laying out my thoughts about the Puella Magi franchise just in general. Okay, and we will take this to the table, so I'll see you in a second. So here we will obviously start off with the Puella Magi Madoka Magica manga adaptation. And this manga was actually produced as the anime was airing. So if you've noticed, there are some stark differences with the art on the cover, as in Sayaka's sword is definitely different, Kyoko's spear is certainly different, Madoka's arrow is more tangible, the soul gems also look different, and that is a consequence of the manga being made in tandem with the anime, as Hanokage based this off of Ume Aoki's original character designs. One notable thing about the manga for sure is how absolutely gross Kyubey looks. Like, look at that. Look at that. That is terrifying. No, don't look at me that way. No. Literally most disgusting panel in the manga. Like, fight me on that. Like, ew! Oh my god, ew! But it definitely gave the manga some charm in that Kyubey was definitely not to be trusted from the get-go. For Puella Magi's 10th anniversary, Hanokage did a new version of the manga with all new art, and which follows the anime's designs a little more closely, but the original manga does still follow the anime story pretty closely. The ending has an extra, very minor bonus scene, which was also included in the updated manga as well. Since I was such a fan of the series, I was going to pick up the manga regardless of if it just retells the story or not. But you also get to see Hanokage's art progress as she also went on to do more of the Puella Magi manga, which I will get into momentarily. And honestly, her art is just really clean, so if you're a fan of the anime, this is basically a must-have pickup regardless. Unfortunately, the singles are out of print, but Yen Press has re-released this series as a complete omnibus, and as far as I am aware, it is still in print. There really shouldn't be any reason for Yen Press to ever have this out of print, but you know how current publishers go. Still good to enjoy nonetheless. Wraith Arc is actually the last story so far to come out in English besides the Magia Records spinoffs. And it actually tells the story of what happened between the end of Puella Magi and the beginning of Rebellion. The mobile game Magia etc. recently implemented Wraith Arc into the story, so more eyes are now on it for those who are not interested in the manga series. Yet again, Hanokage brings out her best art. As you can definitely tell, her art has evolved, and this is the best it's ever looked. As for how I feel about the story itself, it's alright, I guess. The single should be in stock, but I wouldn't put it past Yen Press to eventually release an omnibus for this as well, since there are only 3 volumes. Next on our list here is Rebellion, and I absolutely love the art for this manga. This was done before Wraith Arc, but you can definitely tell that the manga has been evolving. As for the story of Rebellion itself, I've had to indulge in it multiple times to even really understand it. Do I really like Rebellion? Not too much. Did it give my queen Sayaka much more needed attention? Yes. But every character shines in the story, and even though Rebellion's action scenes can't be beat, Hanokage really brings it out in this manga, so this is definitely another good way to enjoy the story. Unfortunately, these singles are out of print, and they are pretty pricey, but again, we have been blessed with an omnibus, so if you would like to continue indulging in Hanokage's fan art, this is definitely a pickup. The last series of me absolutely fawning over Hanokage is The Different Story, which was actually based off of a drama CD. The drama CD, I believe, takes up most of the first volume that follows, obviously, Kyoko and Mami, and then the rest of the series takes off from there. You can see that all of the weapons look the way they are supposed to at this point. I will say, if you enjoyed Mami and Kyoko as characters and want to see more of their story, this definitely expands upon more of their characters and dives more into Mami and Kyoko's motivations, and I definitely enjoyed it quite a bit. Sayaka also gets more attention, which is the most important thing to me, so this one's a definite pickup if you want more of the Madoka story. And yet again, the singles are out of print, but there is of course an omnibus for this one as well. And that will be the end of me telling you how great Hanokage's art is, and we will move on to a few more spinoffs. Next is Homura's Revenge. I haven't read this one since it was initially released. I was waiting for Yen Press to come out with an omnibus release, but unfortunately this one does not have one yet. This one is pretty short, only 2 volumes. This story is different in that when Homura resets one of her timelines, Madoka actually retains her memories of the previous timeline. Now, does that make much of a difference? Well, as you read through the story, it's basically the same retelling, but as it goes on, near the ending, there are some pretty big differences. But as to whether it makes any difference in the overall story, well, this one was okay though. I mean, considering how short it is, it doesn't really overstay its welcome. The artist for the series is also the same as Tart Magica. As I said, no omnibus release for this, unfortunately, and because of that, this series is actually out of print. So come on, Yen Press, step it up. What you doing? Next on our list here is definitely my favorite spinoff, and the only gag manga that Yen Press has released. But this is Puella Magi Homura Tamara, and this series, interestingly enough, is actually by Afro, who is most well known for Laid Back Camp. And this series is actually the reason why I was even interested in Laid Back Camp. I love Afro's art, and for a comedy series, this is definitely one of the best out there. My boyfriend even knows some of the gags in the series because I talk about it so much. This series, of course, follows Homura pretty closely through most of her timelines, and one of the main gags in the series is that she's literally 26 years old, as she's been going through the timelines that long. Absolutely zany and goofy. I think I've read this probably like 6 times now. Looking at it right now, I may do another reread. This could easily have a omnibus reprint. I don't know why Yen Press hasn't indulged in it. Unfortunately, alongside Rebellion, this is definitely the priciest Madoka series on the secondhand market. Yen Press, what are you doing? Release an omnibus of this already, please. I'm pretty sure anything Puella Magi related is basically printing money at this point. Next is the first of the alternate spin-off series, which would be Puella Magi Magica. I know some people probably think that Oriko Magica was the first alternate spin-off, given how much attention that Magia Record and Magi Etc. have given it, but actually Kazumi was the first one. Because I've done all of my recent rereads with the omnibus, I actually have not read this one since it initially came out, but I will say that I do remember being enamored by how dark this story got. And I know you're probably thinking, well, of course, it's Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Of course, all the spin-off stories are going to be dark. But this one definitely takes a turn that I was not expecting. And like I said, it's definitely been a while since I've read it, so I don't entirely remember the twist. But of all 4 of the main alternate spin-offs, Kazumi is probably my favorite. And unfortunately is the one that I think gets overlooked the most, especially because of Record and Etc. focused more on Oriko Magica and Tart Magica. Tart Magica is okay, and I think even Suzune probably got more attention than Kazumi. But I'm really hoping that Etc. will focus more on Kazumi in the future because I really think it needs more attention. I will say, if you're not big on fan service, the first volume will probably turn you off. Initially, when I first read it, I was like, I don't think I really like where the story's going. But the fan service really disappears after the first volume, and it gets more serious pretty much immediately. This one does not have an omnibus release. Yen Press has really stuck to combining 3-volume series for their omnibuses. I don't know if Yen Press will do a 2-volume one in the future. Considering they've been really lacking on their Puella Magi releases recently, I don't think so, which is very unfortunate because, like I said, I wish the series would get more eyes, but we can only hope. Next is Puella Magi Oriko Magica. And yes, I kept that sign in for a reason. Oriko Magica sucks. I'm sorry to say. It's definitely gotten the most focus because of Magia Record and Magi Etc. But the story sucks, the art sucks, the characters suck. Although Yuma is absolutely precious and she means everything to me. But holy crap, does this story suck. Like, the thing that's interesting about Oriko Magica is Sadness Prayer literally exists, I think because the original story just sucks so bad. Because Sadness Prayer basically just follows the story of More and Death. And initially, I almost didn't even complete Sadness Prayer because I held off on buying it for so long, but I'm glad I did because now this set is unfortunately very pricey. As far as I'm aware, these 2 are still in print, but these 2 are not. I did reread Oriko Magica and Extra Story recently because Yen Press did release a complete omnibus of those. Extra Story just follows the original characters a little more closely. Other than that, there honestly isn't really anything redeemable about the series. Oriko is a terrible character. Kirika is a terrible character. Homura sucks in the series. Like, her character isn't even the same as the original series. Oriko Magica probably got more attention because it closely involves the original characters, The whole story is that Oriko is able to see the future and sees that Madoka turns into Kriemhild Gretchen, and because of that, she sets up a plan to try to get Kyubey to not turn her into a magical girl, which involves Kyubey focusing on other potential candidates for magical girls and also killing off other magical girls. I'm sure there's some people who really enjoy Oriko Magica that will probably fight me on this, which is fine. Another thing is that the art just isn't redeemable. I can't deal with it. It is very unique, but unique doesn't equal great. And the only other thing I can say is that Yuma is a precious being and needs to be protected at all costs. As usual, the original singles are out of print, but a complete omnibus exists for Oriko Magica and Extra Story. Not really sure why it says complete omnibus, because we're kind of missing Sadness Prayer, which if you're interested in the Oriko story, just don't even read the original manga, just read Sadness Prayer. But unfortunately, Sadness Prayer is the one that is out of print. But Magi, etc. has included Sadness Prayer in its entirety, or I'm sure there are playthroughs of the story online. Next is Puella Magi Tart Magica, The Legend of Jeanne d'Arc, which if you remember Joan of Arc being shown for about 1 second in the original Madoka anime, when Madoka is overturning the law of cycles, well, here's a whole story on it. The story itself is fine. It does give you a pretty extensive history lesson on Joan of Arc herself and the history of her battles through France. And when I mean history lesson, I mean like entire pages of history. Like, holy crap, look how small that print is. But the story itself is okay. I do enjoy how obnoxious the bad guys are, but I honestly don't remember too much else about this. Unfortunately, because Yen Press hates any series that are longer than 3 volumes, this also doesn't have an omnibus release, and these singles are definitely out of print. But Magia Record gave the series a lot more attention, so I'm sure you can find playthroughs of this story online as well. And here's the last of our alternate spin-offs here, which is Puella Magi Suzune Magica. This story is okay, the art is really good, but unfortunately the series was cut short, so volume 3 is very rushed, and the ending is kinda because of it. Even though I reread this story pretty recently, I also don't remember too much about this one. I will say that I enjoyed this story a little bit more than Tart, so I would say that this is behind Kazumi Magica in my ranking of my favorite of the alternate spin-offs. And because this one did end with 3 volumes, Yen Press treated us with an omnibus edition of this series as well. 2 out of 4 of the alternate series being in print isn't great, but I would definitely say pick this one up over Oriko, because I am just very heavily biased against Oriko, sorry. Now, I'm just going to combine these last 2 together as they are still ongoing. We have Puella Magi Madoka Magica Side Story Magia Record and Puella Magi Madoka Magica Magia Record Another Story. These follow the Arc 1 story of the Magia Record mobile game, which unfortunately is not in service anymore. Magia etc. has rehashed this story, but they cut out a lot of details, and it is not voiced. So if you're interested in this story, I would suggest watching the original English translated story online. Another story follows alongside Arc 1 as a separate story following specifically Madoka's side of the story, as they are included in the series. Unfortunately, Sayaka is not on any of these covers, which disappoints me greatly. But she actually doesn't show up until like halfway through Arc 1 anyway, so I guess I'll forgive that. We are caught up on another story, because for some strange reason it has not been continued, although as far as I'm aware the story is not over with. The art is amazing. The artist is well known for doing character designs for some original anime series like Aquatope of the White Sand, which I think I initially watched because she was the character designer for it. But yeah, hoping to see that story continued at some point. Unfortunately, for Magia Record, we have been stuck at volume 7 for 2 years now. Japan is already up to volume 11. What is Yen Press doing? I don't know. The longer it takes them to release ongoing series, the easier it is for singles to become out of stock for a very long time. As far as I'm aware, volume 2 is pretty pricey right now because it has been out of stock for a long time. And even though Yen Press's release calendar is updated all the way to July, there still is no news about a Volume 8 release of Magia Record. Yen Press, seriously, what are you doing? As for the story itself, it's okay. I definitely think the manga is much better than the anime, as the anime kind of went its own route and didn't follow the story very well. The manga actually follows the story a bit more closely, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of Arc 1. The characters are okay, but I think the story dragged quite a bit. I'm halfway through the translation online of Arc 2, and so far I think Arc 2 is much better than Arc 1, but will we ever get a manga adaptation of that? Not really sure, but as for now, this is what we've got. And here I'll quickly go through the art books I have. And oops, forgot Hanokage did the cover art for this, so here's me fangirling over her art again. Here's the backside, and there's my queen. This art book actually follows the events of the anime as told through various artists. I actually really like this one. Unfortunately, I can't read the notes because they're in Japanese. But I think Yen Press is allergic to art books, so don't think we'll ever get one of these in English. Here's a page that Afro, the creator of Homura Tamara, did, which is one of my favorites for sure. And yeah, I feel this one is a definite must-have if you are a Puella Magi fan for sure. As far as I'm aware, it's not too expensive to get online, but I bought this one several years ago, so I'm not sure on that. Next is the Ume Aoki Ultimate Artworks collection. Ume Aoki is the original character designer of Puella Magi and also did the manga series Sunshine Sketch or Hidamari Sketch. I believe I bought this at about 55, 60 bucks. I think this is still running for around there. At least buying it from Japan, considering shipping. And when I was commenting about the original character designs, this is what I meant. Oh my gosh, look how terrifying that Kyubey is. Get that thing away from me. I mean, just look how different their weapons are. Sayaka is still an absolute queen as always. Ew, Kyubey's on that page, unfortunate. Yes, my absolute starlet. But this just includes various art that she did for the series and for covers such as New Type. And yeah, if you're a Puella Magi fan, I would definitely say this is another absolute pickup. Here's a collaboration art between the characters of Madoka and Sunshine Sketch. And here's some other basic prototype designs. Look how different Mommy looks. Oh my goodness. Wow, could you imagine if we got that Nagisa? So yeah, another definite pickup for sure. There's another art book or production book called You Are Not Alone, which I would say is another definite pickup, but I unfortunately don't actually have that one. But I do have a couple others that I can show off here. Here are the 10th anniversary books. Oh boy, another Hanokage cover. This isn't really so much an art book as it is a collection of random comics. There's also some various comments from voice actors and people who worked on the series, and actually a Puella Magi novel that was made just for this collection. It's split into the 3 parts of the series. It's actually written by Gengen Kusano, I believe their name is, and there is a fan translation of this online. I haven't read it yet, but I actually own a novel that Gengen Kusano has done, and some people said that the story was very convoluted and was hard to decipher, and I understand why, because having read the first chapter of that story I own, which is called Last and First Idol, I'm sure the story is very convoluted, because what in the world was even that story? Unfortunately, because these are in Japanese, I haven't been able to read most of these stories. Some of them are translated online, but unfortunately not all of them. Even though these are official, I definitely know for sure that these aren't getting an English release, so that kind of sucks, but still was a definite must-have for my collection. Here's just a couple short books here. This is a fan art book. I actually followed the creator on Pixiv for a bit. I ended up buying this one at the only anime convention I've ever been to. And this one I actually picked up in a Kinokuniya, which is an ongoing Madoka Nanoha crossover. I just picked this up on a whim because it was a Madoka Dojin. Yeah, not too much else to say about those. Although I will say, look at this gorgeous art. Oh my goodness. But besides that, this one is also definitely one of my top faves. This one, I believe, is an unofficial release. This is, I think, just a random art book of various images. Of course, had to show off the Sayaka page. If you've ever spent any time on Pixiv, you probably recognize some of these artworks. I don't actually remember where I picked this one up at. I think I just bought this one online on a whim. This one also has a couple short various comics at the end. But yeah, just a good random pickup. And then here's the last one here, which I also believe I just picked up from somebody randomly online. The outside cover was cool, so I just had to show that off. But this is actually a Pixiv Puella Magi illustration collection. This one on the right here, I believe, was done by Kei Mochizuki, which yet again, if you've spent any extensive time on Pixiv, you probably recognize their art. I have seen a lot of these on Pixiv by themselves. Oh, bunnies! These are definitely some of the more popular works on there for sure. Gotta comment on the Soul Gem picks. I love picks and items just in bottles or anything like that, but can't go wrong with this picture of Junko and Tatsuya here with Madoka. One of the most adorable Madoka picks I think I've ever seen in my life. And this artist on the left here is, I believe, Get You, which I've been following them for a long time. They do a lot of Madoka comics. Their art looks so official. And some of their works have been translated online. So yeah, we'll just go back to the beginning here. And I've rambled on long enough. The sun is going down behind me, so I'm sure some of the lighting has definitely changed. I rambled for quite a bit, and I'm not sure how this video is going to turn out. I didn't really have too much to say on the manga themselves because, like I said in the beginning, I would like to do a more extensive video once I get better editing skills about my thorough thoughts on the series after giving all of them a reread. Of course, this is just a complete English release, but there are many, many more spin-offs in Japanese, most of them gag manga. I know there's one that got really popular that follows Mami as like a 30-year-old. A lot of them haven't been translated online. There's one I read recently called Madoka Ingawa, I believe, or it was the 4-panel one that was done by Papa, who's well known for doing one-page gag manga of Magi a Record and Magi etc. And that one was just about as funny as Homura Tamara. I wish that would get an English release. As for most of the other ones, like the light novel and the comic anthology, most of those have not been fully translated, which is very disappointing. Mitaki Hara Anti-Materials, I believe, is the only other one that has gotten a complete translation online. The rest of them are just various chapters. But I mean, with a series as popular and extensive as this, like, there's no way we'll ever get a complete release of everything. But Yen Press has done a pretty good job of releasing pretty much all of the serious manga. Pretty much everything else they haven't released is either gag manga or more slice of life. So I don't believe we're missing out on too much. But as a big Madoka fan, I would definitely like to read as much as I can. But yeah, before I ramble on any longer, I think I'm going to cut this off here. Not sure what my next video is going to be. Maybe my Cardcaptor Sakura collection, but I guess we'll see what happens. So yeah, if you stuck around this long, thank you for watching. Like I said, these videos are unscripted right now, so my thoughts are probably all over the place. But in the future, I hope to be able to grasp exactly how I want my videos to be formatted. So if you don't mind bearing with me here, then I appreciate it. So that's all I got to say on this one, and I will see you guys later. Bye!